Let's begin with Alison. What did you bring?
Well, I brought a jar with colored pasta from Italy and 3 rocks with words on them.
Yes, I got to know what that is. So colored pasta, 3 rocks. Lytwaive, what about you? What did you bring?
I brought with me Oh Glory and the lyrics from one of Michael Jackson's songs.
Wow. And you may have to sing it. So I'm just saying, when you bring lyrics here, although I don't know if we could do that because of like the whole like copyright or something. I don't want royalty fees to be or whatever. Anyhow, well, I'm excited to hear about that too. Now, everyone that's tuning in, thank you for joining us for another episode of Not Quite Strangers. This podcast, the whole idea is to build connection, to bring two people who've not met each other or don't quite know each other very well, and also inspire curiosity and even maybe challenge the status quo as a result of our conversation. And my name is Valerie. I am your host. Now, one of the things that I love about this podcast is that I get to pick the people. And these are two people who I actually know quite well, or I've gotten to know in the last year-ish, several months now. Lytwaive for sure. So Alison, you and I go back to 2019. Yes, 2019.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we both, again, another Berkeley crowd. You guys will see on the show some cameos from my Berkeley colleagues. So both Alison and Lytwaive are Berkeley colleagues, but Alison specifically, you and I met 2019. We ended up actually in a practice coaching session and just really kicked it off from there and been really fast friends ever since. And then Lytwaive, you and I, did we just meet last year?
Yes, last November, December timeframe.
It seems like forever ago because we've worked so closely just in the last, this past year. We actually worked on a few projects together and I was like a mentor to you in some of the projects that we had. So I feel like we've known each other way longer. I know a lot more about you. But what was funny is that when I was thinking about who I could invite to be on this podcast, and I can't remember who I invited first, to be honest, but I was like, these two women seem like a great match. Both of you are strong, highly experienced professionals working at the top of your game in so many areas of your life. And I also thought, I actually feel like I could be in that, I'm in that circle too in many ways, right? Because I feel, definitely strong, assertive, and it'd be interesting to have a conversation about what that's like for you guys. And that's why I thought, let's have a 3-way conversation about it. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Well, thank you for saying yes. Well, I always like to ask my guests, why did you say yes? Knowing this is an experiment. I know the two of you actually know each other too. It's not like you're complete strangers. Yeah. You actually went through the training at Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute together. So why did you even say yes to being here?
I said yes because of you, Valerie. I totally trust you. And I had no idea what's about to happen today, but I know that this is a very safe bubble. And Lytwaive and I really got along at Berkeley. It was great. And so that's a very vulnerable, open experience. So I knew today was just going to be wonderful.
Thank you.
Same here, basically, Valerie. It was because you asked. And because you asked, I said yes.
Man, thank you. I need to ask for more stuff, I realize. I'm like, that's it.
Oh, and by the way, I'm working on boundaries.
Oh. Well, we'll talk about that because that would be a great topic, especially in light of some of the challenges that you both said you've been experiencing today. But first of all, I think we should cheers to that. So I have water, but you two have, let's do a cheers. Here we go. Yeah, a little vino. Boom. There you go. I'm trying to be responsible as a host. So tell me, first of all, let's talk about the objects that you brought. I asked you to bring something to really that represents or has some meaning for you. So Alison, let's start with you. You have this collection. Tell us about
I
your
did bring a
collection.
collection.
What's the spring collection?
Okay. So this jar of colored pasta from Italy was part of a magnificent picture that was made on the ground by like 30 of us that did this beautiful, beautiful picture. And at the very end, we collected up the pasta and put it in jars. And the meaning of it is don't get attached.
Oh,
Everything changes and is transitional, and enjoy it in the moment, be completely present and let go. It's okay, things change. Then my other three little goodies are always also on my desk, and they're stones. I don't know if you can see it, but that one
can you
says
hold it closer?
passion. It'll
Passion.
get blurred.
Oh, yeah. Passion. Yep.
About back here.
Yep.
Passion, joy,
Mm,
and inspire.
okay.
Yeah, and those are the three things that every day I want to remember and use as my intention. Well, four things. Don't be attached, bring passion, joy, and inspiration to everything.
Wow. Wait, so I love the stones. I have some stones myself, but I'm curious about the jar. You made a picture on the ground using this colored pasta with like artists, or was it just like a random, hey, I have some extra pasta. Let's like what?
Let's dip it
What's
in paint.
yeah, what drove that, inspired
It was,
that?
I did it while I was living over there. I joined a retreat up in the mountains, and part of the retreat, it had meditation and being present, and all kinds of wonderful exercises and walking off and all the things that we need to do to remain centered and grounded. And one of the exercises, they didn't tell us why or what, but as a group, we had to decide what we were going to make with these buckets of colored pasta and what the picture was going to be. So there was a lot of collaboration and how that was going to happen. And it was huge. And we made it, and we're all very proud of it and taking pictures and standing on rocks. And then it was, okay, here are the jars. You can fill your jar with pasta.
Hmm. We worked so hard on this. Huh.
Right. No. Last thing I want to do is destroy it. And it was that exercise, and it's okay. Let go. It was there. It was beautiful. Honor and appreciate and move on. But I have
Yeah.
clung to my jar.
It reminds me of when the Tibetan monks do their mandalas with the colored sand. Have you ever seen that? It's beautiful, amazing. It's painstaking over days, and it's pristine. And then at the end, it's swept up, like just like as if it were dust. For the same thing, impermanence, non-attachment. So, oh, beautiful. I've never had a personal experience like that, though. Cool.
Valerie, thank you. That's obviously where this exercise came from, but because it's Italy, it wasn't sand, it was pasta. Which I now find hysterically funny, but that's great.
Why not? Hey, you gotta represent. and Lytwaive, tell us about what you brought and the meaning it has for you.
Oh, I feel like I'm going to change my fun time here, but I brought with me Oh Glory.
Mm-hmm.
And I know of late it's not has doesn't have the same meaning for everybody, but for me, it has so much meaning and so much depth that it reminds me of my beginnings. It reminds me of where I started and the things that I have had to overcome in my life in order to get to where I am today. And that it is sheerly through the support that I was able to get while serving in the United States Army. So, oh, glory always is always attached to my heart.
Oh, lovely.
And the second thing that I brought with me today was a song by Michael Jackson. And the song that just brings everything home for me and how I kind of look at things is Man in the Mirror.
I knew
I
you
know
were going to say
Allison
that.
knows this because I talked about this when I was at Berkeley. Um, and the whole idea of looking inward and figuring out what you need to do in order to either change yourself or what you need to do to be reflective of a situation. My first place that I look is inward to say, hey, Lytwaive, what could you have done just a little bit different? How could you have been a little bit more supportive? What could you have changed? So those are the two things that I brought with me today. That kind of
Wow.
encapsulates who I am.
Yeah. Wow. So I thought for a second, I was just like, are you doing an ad for the army or the government?
No.
No, but no, it sounds like, yeah, the overcoming, right? Overcoming and the support that you receive. That is beautiful. And I think that's what the flag stands for, right? Even to think about this, the Star Spangled Banner, and the flag was still there. There's,
And it's still
yeah,
here.
there's support. Awesome. And then Man in the Mirror. I love that song. And I don't, that this whole thing when you upload music or anything like that into YouTube, they like check to see if you're using music. And if they are, that you can, there's royalties involved, like all kinds of stuff. So Google the song if you want to know the lyric behind Man in the Mirror. Play a video. But so I'm really curious about, first of all, the two of you know each other. So tell me a little bit about how you guys know each other. Like what's the connection?
Well, we did our 10-day intensive on our journey to become certified coaches from the Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute. Same thing you did, Valerie.
Yeah.
And back in the day, pre-COVID, we were actually in person. So it is 10 days of pretty close to 24/7 being together and really, really being together and talking and up at night and sharing experiences. And it was amazing. And so what happened was that we all got a chance to be with each other. We were in groups together, we were in conversation together, and sharing was done in the group. So we really got to know each other. It was just a beautiful experience.
Nice. And then how about between the two of you? Was there sharing? Did you have any projects together? Like what is the connection?
No, I don't think we had any projects together. I think the group in general was just kind of pretty close. It was such a amazing experience the morning that we kind of shared our, I think, river lives and some. I think it was a river of life that we shared. It was emotional. It was so amazing. So I think the group itself was just really, really close. I think we went to dinner together one night, and that was super amazing. And I found that we all love red wine, and I think there were some choices made for us that was really good. So in general, I think the group just bonded really nicely.
All right. So it's a group experience and you guys know each other from the context of the group, but personally, it's not like so you're literally you're not quite strangers, but you're strangers.
Yes.
I like that. Not quite strangers.
Not quite strangers. All right, cool. Well, I mentioned earlier, like one of the things I saw in both of you is this level of strength and independence. I'm curious, where does that come from the two of you? What experiences have formed who you are as women in the world at this point in your life?
Would you like to kick that off, Lytwaive?
Uh, sure. I think that I've had many experiences to start with. I would just tell you that I've started things in my life, and I have this little motto about starting things in life. Even if you decide that you're not going to do it later, that you finish what you start. So if I start down a journey or down a road, I'm going to see it through. I may not eventually continue doing a particular project or doing a particular job, but it's not that I won't see it through. I think that my upbringing, my family has a lot to do with the strength that I have
Mhm.
and ensuring that uh, I am able to start the things, finish the things that I start. I think that was something that was ingrained in us growing up. And I just shared with you that I was in the Army for 21 years. And back in the day, post pre-COVID, like 20 years pre-COVID.
20
Uh,
years pre-COVID. Does everything have to be like, is this like going to be like a, AD,
Yes.
BC,
Yes.
PC
yes,
now?
yes,
Yes.
yes.
20 years
Absolutely.
PC.
But
Yes.
way back in the day, I think that the Army really did, and I just say military in general, really kind of broke you down and build you back up into the type of person that they wanted you to be in order to support and defend our nation. And so the whole concept of integrity, of leadership, and support, all of those things have been ingrained into me to become the person that I am. I do tell you that these things change over time, not necessarily the values and the morals and the ethics that you have, but the kind of the way you see them. And
Mm.
for me, I can tell you that one of the things that have really kind of changed for me is this idea of like accumulating stuff. I could do without stuff for the rest of my life. Just give me some experiences with some
Yeah.
good people. And as an example, for Mother's Day this year, my daughter took me out on a hot air balloon ride. My youngest daughter did. It was such an amazing experience. So I didn't need to have the stuff, but I will cherish that experience for the rest of my life. So over time, things have changed for me, and I have continued to embrace a lot of the goodness. But as I told you earlier, I continue to look inward. Well, what can I do different? What's next? And this idea of giving back and supporting others, being kind and having empathy and sympathizing with people and showing love and compassion is really, really where my heart is right now.
That's beautiful. I can totally get that. Yes, experiences over stuff.
Yeah.
There may be a t-shirt or maybe some rocks that you can, I don't know. I feel like it needs to be commemorated somewhere. Experience over stuff. No, but that's really interesting. And I think, it's one thing I'm curious about, and Alison, I want to hear from you also, is what is like the origin of that? I get like Lytwaive, in your case, you mentioned the military, right? Your upbringing. But I know when I go back to like the origin, and I just had this realization a few months, not even months, maybe like a month ago. And having conversations, coaching conversations as we do, right, on a regular basis, that I discovered that there was an incident when I was 7 years old where we were in Panama, that's where we're from originally, and we're crossing the street to catch the bus. And it was my younger brother. I was maybe 7, he was probably 8. And then we have 2 younger brothers who are twins, and they were probably 3 or 4 years old. And so we were crossing the street, and this is a 4-lane street. My mom and I want to say, I don't know if it was my dad or my uncle, were carrying our twin brothers across the street. And this was like Sunday, I was wearing my Sunday clothes or whatever. We're leaving my grandparents' home, and the bus was coming on the opposite side of the street. So as we were crossing, I slipped and I fell in like my little dress or shoes or whatever. And I'm freaking out because our cars are coming. And I remember, they don't remember this, but I remember them turning around saying, Valerie, come on, let's go, get out, the bus is coming. And I'm like, but I was about to die, in my little 7-year-old head. But that was a moment where I figured, oh, I need to learn to keep myself safe. And I need to just get up whenever I fall and walk across with my head held high and my little scuffed shoes or whatever, because no one came back to get me, so to speak. Now I've talked to everybody about my mom, my dad, everybody. There's no like blame or anything with them, But it was interesting how that moment in time really colored every experience I've had, where I felt like, okay, I need to rise to the occasion, literally and figuratively, right? I need to take care of myself. I need to, that's where the strength, I think, comes from. So I'm curious, and Alison, we'll start with you, but curious about like the origin, because both of you, I know this, and I don't know all of your past, but I know from both of you and the challenges that you've shared with me and the lives that you've led, that you've dealt with some stuff. Where does it come from? Like, if you had to point to a moment, whatever you're comfortable sharing.
It's interesting, Valerie, because I never put any of this together, but the one and only image that I've got in my head is being a 3 or 4-year-old in preschool. I don't know what they called it back then. My mother worked. And I put my head between the bars of a chair, a ladder back chair, and couldn't get it back out. And that helplessness, looking back on it, was a position I was never going to be in again. And I have not thought about that moment in this way, although that moment I carry with me. And I'm pretty sure that that was the moment that I was never going to stick my head through the bars again if I couldn't get it back out.
Interesting. Helplessness and certainty, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Ooh. Well, thank you for, that's an interesting image even to like, well, okay, so how did you get your head out? Like, what happened? Did they have to like bust the chair open?
Yes, they did.
Really?
Yeah, they called my mother and she said, break the chair, I'll buy a new one. Let's get the kid's head out of there.
But that's like a whole thing when you're 3 or 4 years old. Like, how long you're that's like a whole thing.
Oh, it's just, yeah, it is. I don't know that I will ever come in touch with why I put my head through there, but I did. But Lytwaive, I have to say that it's so interesting that you and I have ended up in this place of compassion and relationship and being in service to people, having started in completely opposite places.
Yeah.
I have 2 older sisters and 60s, March on Washington, complete hippies. I was too young to do that, but I did it because I had the older sisters. So bus to Washington, anti-war, anti-Vietnam, burning flags, burning bras, all those things that we did in the 60s. And it always question the status quo. Don't listen to anyone. If somebody tells you what to do, don't do it. Figure out another way to get it done, no matter what, no thought. In high school, I don't remember even anymore what I was complaining about, dress code, I think. And the principal made me read all these books on civil disobedience and what that looks like. And a huge learning experience. And so I went into business in my life, not knowing any boundaries, not knowing that I couldn't do everything exactly as I wanted to do it. And it is just such a completely different start for both of us to end up in the same place. It's really, talk about change and growth, and don't be attached.
Civil disobedience. All right, Lytwaive, I saw you nodding through that. So what was going through your mind as you were sharing?
I was just thinking, our journeys couldn't have been more different in order to end up on the same road. It is just amazing how I am going to be speaking for a group on Saturday. And one of the things that they had asked me about was my journey. And they asked me, did I have any words that I wanted to share? And I thought, well, okay. I think I said something like, the road is, your career is a journey, not a destination. That's not that's not Lytwaive's. I've heard that other places. It's a journey. And the journey is never on a straight road. That there are many bends and turns in your road, and there are many peaks and valleys as you go along. But the one thing that you have to remember is that when you fall down, get up. You must get back up and keep trying. And so as Alison was explaining this, I was like, man, these are similar stories. I'm like, wow, you know, we had all these bends and turns, but ultimately, we had an intersection in our paths that put us on a similar or the same road.
What made you guys decide to go down this particular path though? Like, what was it? What was the turn that you made, or the pause, or the yield sign that you saw that made you go, okay, now I need to change directions, or I need to move further down this direction?
Well, for me, I think it probably was the accumulation of all the stuff that I've ever wanted. And it didn't change a thing. Like, I had a dream car and I got it.
What was the dream car? Yes, you got to say it.
A Mercedes 500.
I don't know what that means, but okay, cool.
So I got this beautiful, expensive Mercedes car.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the car. It gets me from point A to point B, just like my little yellow Fiat does.
Mm-hmm.
And I drive my Fiat more. And I tend to appreciate my Fiat more because I can get in and out of traffic really quickly. I don't care about the bumps and the dings and any of those things. But I think the point is that once I got what I thought was the dream that I wanted, it was no longer a dream for me to have it. So I finally got to the point that I thought that this is just stuff. I need something more that fulfills me. And there's a portion of giving back that is fulfilling, but that's not really it either. That the giving back is really for me, but what is it for the next person? And it is more of the teaching and the coaching and the mentoring, that you are doing something for others that will sustain their lives, not necessarily giving a handout per se, but helping people walk in their own truth.
Yeah. That's, that resonates a lot with something I heard recently, that life is 50% achievement and 50% fulfillment. And it sounds like in your case, Lytwaive, when you've had the 100% achievement of the things that you thought were what you wanted, or the things that you'd been striving for, that there is no gap to live into, right? So it's like, oh, now we have to create. And I think that's constant. Like we always, hopefully, it starts like this. And at some point, okay, achievement. But you're like, I'm not, and then hopefully it starts to look more like fulfillment. And then somebody is like, wait, where are your goals? Where are your outcomes? Like, how come you haven't shown up? You didn't call me back or what? So there's always like a constant equalizing force, nature, I guess, and as we live life. That's fascinating. And now it's culminating in, hot air balloon rides.
Yes.
Alison, for you, Alison?
I think my big turning point was when I was a CEO and doing my thing, completely my identity, and decided to go to Berkeley to up my skills as a leader. And in the Certificate of Business Excellence, one of the courses was high impact leadership, taught by the Coaching Institute faculty. And it really knocked me off my pins about relationship, showing up, being present, being spontaneous, being there for people, all the things that Berkeley, the Institute's about. And that led me to go get my certificate in coaching. And that changed my world, absolutely changed my world. And as the universe would do it, I was always self-sufficient on my own, supporting myself, my kids, single woman. Well, yeah, I did have, technically I was married, but I was a single woman. And
You're gonna have
I
to
was
explain that, by the way, because we can't leave it like that. But all right, we'll come back to that. Finish your thought.
It's another podcast. And that I was just going to be on my own and joyous about my world forever. It was great. I was satisfied and fulfilled, and becoming a coach. And then this Texan walked into the Jersey girl's life, and all of a sudden I'm in a relationship, and that required from me a whole mind shift and partnership and a different orientation, not just externally in relationship and as a coach, but internally. What is it like to be truly in a relationship with somebody? And that all happened at the same time. And that's why I am where I am.
There's something you said there that's interesting. I want to peel back a little bit, this idea of partnership, because all three of us have expressed in some way, shape, or form already in this conversation, this idea of independence, this idea of like picking yourself up, this idea of not being helpless, right? Like it's a theme, which I figured it would be. This is why I brought the two of us, all the three of us together. But how does one build, now that you're committing your lives, right? Both of you have said you're committing your lives to service, you're committing your lives to compassion. These elements of life do require partnership, right? Whether with a life partner or with with an organization or with your colleagues or mentors or the coachees or clients you have. So what are some ways that you've noticed you've had to flex to be better partners? Lytwaive, we'll start with you.
I think that just being mindful is the thing that works for me. I would just tell you, just recently, as recent as yesterday, working with one of my employees, where I felt like I had given detailed instructions. This was no coaching, it was no mentoring. It was go do A, B, C, and D about a month ago, only to find out that now that we need A, B, C, and D to have been done, that it was not done. And I was not very happy, to say the least. Mm. And I had to remind myself that that person is not who I want to be anymore. That person, without sympathy or without having some type of empathy for someone when they do something wrong and not giving them opportunity and chance, is not the person that I want to be. And so afterwards, I had to call her and say, I'm sorry that I am going to allow you to take the time to review this and get back with me on the right answer with the details. And that's what we will go with. Definitely a learning lesson, a learning experience for her. But it was also a learning experience for me that I have to continue to work at being the person that I want to be and being mindful of the past, even if it means I have to go back and apologize. And I'm not beyond that. Even being who I am, where I am within, in my career, I am never in a position where I am afraid to say I'm sorry or that I was wrong. And I think it builds a lot of trust for me that I am able to do this with people, not just people that I work for, but I can do this with anybody. If I am wrong and I need to express that, no problem. I will stop dead in my tracks and either call or go and make it known, because I think that's what we need nowadays, for more people to own their outcomes and be open to other outcomes other than what they have formulated in their minds.
Why? I know. Yes, you're right. You're
Yeah.
right. Oh, that's hard though, Latrina. I totally get it though. I found, and I got some coaching about this yesterday, actually, funny enough. It's a little mini session, but it was helpful. Because I do end up doing quite a lot of stuff myself in my life, or people rely on me to do certain things. And Alison, I think you and I've talked about this before too. I'm the one that they ask, hey, can you do this? Can you call here? Can you talk to her? You talk to him, you do that. And at some point in my life, that was really wonderful, ego boosting, these requests, because I'm so capable and so, prepared or efficient or effective or whatever. That was great. But then I noticed that I just couldn't do more stuff, because all the other stuff that I said I was going to be doing for other people were like weighing me down or taking the time or the energy away that I needed in order to do more things or new things or whatever. So that's been the big learning curve for me. And then I also realized I had this huge conversation with my brothers on Friday, just a few days ago. And we were doing some family events and activities. And they were like, no, Valerie, you should do it because you're the one that does this best. No one else can do it as good as you can. And I was just like, I'm tired. So I'm really, I'm curious about how you guys deal with that, because it sounds as capable as you are, and you're building partnership and you're developing compassion in service of other people, and Alison, you kind of mentioned this earlier, like boundaries. Like, I'm not saying, for me, I don't think it's about boundaries. I think it's more like what Latrina was saying, is about developing other people to feel as confident and competent as I feel in some of those spaces, and not always having taken the time or, done the recon that I needed to, like, how capable are they, rather than just delegating, right? It's more about, okay, let me shore up some things up in order for people to feel that way. So I don't know, Alison, what are you getting from this? And where do you stand?
For me, it was about ensuring that I was not vulnerable. That just absolutely was not an option. And that it took me so long to realize that the vulnerability actually is not synonymous with death, that it's okay. And there's a lot of growth in that for me. And that I think that was a lot of also what happened in the process of high impact leadership and coaching. And that I was just spending most of my time crying hysterically because all the walls are coming down.
Wow.
And I didn't really know why I was crying, but just all that pent up vulnerability. And that now the other side of this is that I feel so much more deeply, and the relationships are so much more rich, and that I don't have to cling to everything. And I talk about boundaries, and I hear you. Maybe it has absolutely nothing to do with boundaries, and it has to do with the relationships and letting go. Letting go.
I think we all need a little bit of that pasta. Yeah. And Latrina, what for you? What are you hearing?
Well, I think I feel like I'm almost in a session here.
We kind of are.
Oh God, 3 coaches in the same room.
This is what it's like, people. This
is life.
When you do it right.
But it's amazing. I was sitting here thinking about the question that you had asked earlier about what was that one thing that really kind of made you realize that you needed to be strong, that you needed to be self-sufficient. And if you don't mind me taking you
Yeah.
back there for just
Go
a
back.
moment,
Take us
I
back.
I recall uh, I must have been February, because it was cold outside, I think, and it was a month before I went into the military. Is that I was a rebel back when I was a teenager, and it didn't take much for me to have choice words to come out of my mouth. Uh, and as a result of my defiance, I kind of got kicked out of, not kind of, I got kicked out of my house, or my parents' house, for being disrespectful. It was the right thing for them to have done, because I was really disrespectful. And I just remember sitting on the back porch, just boo hoo hooing and just praying, Lord, if you get me out of Detroit, Michigan, Lord, if you just get me out of here, I promise I'm never, ever, ever, ever coming back again. Um, and lo and behold, that was the day I believe that I knew that I had to be strong, that I had to take care of myself. And within the next 2 weeks, I went into the military. And it has been like that pretty much ever since. And as you were talking about the go-to person in your family for everything, it is just like that. Lytwaive, can you do this? Lytwaive, can you do this? Put this together. We should do this. No, 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 you do this. It's so amazing. You don't want to say no, but you have to build that next level of support within your family, so they can take on these roles that you have been doing for many years. But I thought it was pretty profound to think about the one thing that was really kind of like the turning point for you to think about where your strength came from, the thing that you kind of remember, the kind of that really got it all started. And sitting on that back porch in the middle of the winter, and it's cold off of those lakes, just sitting here trying to figure out what the next part of the story was going to be. So I was thinking about that as we were talking, and thought I would just share that I do remember what that point was.
Mm. And, I like to always complete the circle for people, because some of the listeners are probably like, and then what happened? So you were sitting on the back porch and that's it, you went into the army? Or
No,
did you
no,
ever
no.
did you camp out in the backyard? Like
No.
what
So
was the resolution that evening
I went and stayed with my recruiter.
with your recruiter?
My
Wow.
recruiter took me in.
And then that's it.
Yeah, I went to the military.
And your parents?
And I had to come home and have my mom sign for me, because I was only 17.
Wow.
And
Woo!
she did. She did.
She's like, yes, please take her. Yes, I approve.
Well, no. She said, "Are you sure? Do you really want to do this?" And I said, "Yes. I want to go as far away from Detroit as I can." And that was over to Germany. And when I come back, make sure I am equally as far away. And I went to Texas.
Oh man. And so I'm curious, because all of us obviously have these moments that we have pointed out. What has the conversation been with your families, or with your families about that moment, or about any of the stuff that we've been talking about so far?
For me, I don't know if my family realized that was the turning point for me. I was never really a rebel, probably until I was a senior in high school. I was pretty good, got really good grades, thought I was pretty smart as well. And then I think as I graduated out of high school and started college, I think I kind of got a little beside myself, and thought I was grown with living in my parents' house, eating my parents' food, parents sending me to college, and I clearly thought I was grown. So I don't know if they really know that that was the point for me, but they do know that was the day that I never came back.
Yeah. Ooh. And are your parents still living, Latrita?
My mom is. As a matter of fact, my mom lives with me.
You gotta have her watch this episode. I'm like, ooh, how cool would that be?
Yeah.
What? You never told me.
I know, right? You never told me. I'm so sorry.
My parents all know. I live on speakerphone with my family. Most of the time they're like, oh, really? Wow. I mean, they care, but it's never like, no, you don't remember? I slept in the like, no. And it's so interesting. Like we have these moments in time that are so defining, right? Who we are and what we do and how we do life. And the people that were around in the moment, perhaps no clue, no idea. So I always feel like it's important. And it does take some of the significance away when I do have those conversations, like, because that's the moment in my head. But then in my brother's head is like, yeah, but I had my Legos in my hand. So yeah, I wasn't gonna come, something like that. It was something so simple and so like insignificant. And I'm like, oh, actually, maybe it wasn't that big a deal.
But you're so right, Valerie. You never know when you're making an impact on someone else's life by the way you lead your life or by some of the things that you say and do. So you just absolutely never know. I recall giving a speech to a bunch of interns, and the intern coordinator was there that was on staff. And one of the things I told the interns was to find a job that you would do for free in life. That's the job that you will love, and you will love going to the job. She quit her job the next day.
Wow.
Went back to school to become an elementary school teacher.
Wow. Yeah, you spoke truth to
Wow.
her, and she was like, maybe she just needed permission or something. That's so funny that, yeah, we do make an impact.
Mm.
Alison, that was a big reaction. What what had you say? Wow.
It was the statement Lytwaive made about you never know. And that in this one instance, you do know, and maybe there are others that you know, but then how many more are there that none of us know about the impact we've had on other people? And it could be that one little conversation that you just don't know. And that's where the showing up, being present, and being authentic and the best version of yourself you can be makes such a difference just by being there.
Exactly.
I'm curious about just in the here and now, like this particular point in time in history and in society. There's so many challenges. There's so many things. So many people either need support. I think the three of us as coaches and as leaders in our own organizations, we are probably called on to inspire, to motivate, to guide, right, to mentor, to coach, all of those elements and qualities. I'm curious about what you guys are aiming for. Like what's the next level, next move, next, not necessarily career wise, but in who you're being. Like you all take, like you said, you have these winding roads with peaks and valleys, right? Not getting attached to any particular destination, just being able to go with the flow. So I'm curious, as you look ahead, what direction do you see yourself heading in?
Oh, my favorite question. Thank you. Oh my God, Valerie. Okay. So in these unbelievable times that we live in, my thing is that to really make a difference in the world and to make the world a better place, the largest venue are our corporations. And how people are treated within our organizations is what people tend to bring home, because we spend so many hours of every day vested in that organization.
Mhm.
And that when the organizations treat people like people and humanely, and it makes a difference, and it's passionate and inspiring and a joyous environment, and they understand the why of why they are doing their job. What difference does it make to the corporate vision, and who is this corporation, and the values, and all those conversations, we can make a difference in the world. And that's why I want to continue being a coach, because people showing up authentically as themselves, embracing their values,
Mhm.
changes the world.
Bringing more humanity
Yeah.
to the work. I get that.
Yeah. And we get to have these conversations. I mean, I don't want to say that it's not critically important one-on-one in friendships and reaching out to people. That's very important. But when you get to do it with a lot of people at once, okay, let's bring this to the table. What's going on in our country, in our community, in our world, and how is it affecting you? Are you okay?
Yeah.
And how do we change this? How do we move it forward? And I think we all learned very much in our faces, being silent makes you complicit and you are part of the problem.
Mhm.
So where's your voice and what does it look like to speak up?
This is so interesting because I had a conversation with someone who shared that because productivity was so much more praised, it was acknowledged, it was expected in the workplace. In the past year, it's been flipped upside down, right? People having to work in different ways, really restrict access and relationships. And there's so much trauma, right? Collective trauma happening, whether it's health related or the racial inequities, or, I mean, you can add, right? All of those things. It was interesting because he noticed that this leader that he became over all these other years, PC, his leadership PC pre-COVID, was no longer as it wasn't touted as much. It wasn't as needed, wanted, or acknowledged. Like there was a different kind of leader seemingly rising to the surface in the organization that was more empathetic, compassionate, flexible, adaptable, could really connect with other people, bring people together, inspire and influence from a distance, like all of these other qualities. And so I totally get what you're saying. And I think if we don't develop, again, achievement, fulfillment, if we're not developing those at if they're not at par, the challenge is that, we'll end up lopsided when these situations turn themselves on their head and we're like, oh my gosh, we don't have the skills, we don't have the comfort, we don't have the confidence or the competence to behave in the way that the organization or the people around me are calling out for.
Mm-hmm.
So fascinating. Oof. And Latrita, what about you? What's there for you about that?
Ditto all. I actually do love my current job. They have allowed me to bring in the coaching methodologies into my office and into the organization. And I am really, really excited about that opportunity to help people find their authentic selves. Some of the things I've shared with you guys today, I probably never would have shared in the past, but it's who I am and it's my story. And my story is what makes me uniquely different. And I'm okay with telling my story. And I'm hopeful that the story that I tell will help someone else. But ultimately, I think down the road, I just want to be the best version of myself that I can be. And that version will be able to help other people.
That's all we want to do. We just want to help other people. All of us. Just help. We want to help you help yourself. And actually, International Coaching Week is happening next week, I believe. If I'm not
really
mistaken. Well, without dating ourselves, is that the International Coaching Week is like May 17th, I think, to, I don't know how. I'm not sure what day of the week that is, or if it's counted in a specific time frame or whatever. But in any case, yeah, this is a great time, I think, to engage in conversations like this. For us, we probably don't have the opportunity to share, like, Lytwaive, you mentioned maybe these types of conversations. And I know there's way more. I know both of you better, and I'm not gonna like uncover. You don't have to show inside the kimono all right here in this hour, but I am curious, as we kind of step back a little bit and zoom out, just from this experience. You all knew each other coming into this, right? At least lightly, right? From the shared experience in the coaching institute. But I'm curious about what's, compared to what you knew about each other then to this moment in time, what's it been like, this experience?
Well, I honestly didn't know what to expect coming in. I have enjoyed this, and I have gotten to know Alison a lot better. I love the object that she brought to the table about attachment or not being attached. That's pretty profound. And then the whole journey in giving of herself in partnership is also something that I think that's pretty special. Being single for a long time and then coming to a partnership with someone and making that work, that's pretty special when you've been doing everything for yourself for oh so long, and now here comes, okay, is this the love of my life? And how am I going to share this? I think that's pretty special. So I have learned a lot today, and I am excited to even get to know you more.
Ooh, thank you. I no, I fell for at Berkeley. You're very present, but I was more about what you did, and I was just so blown away with your power and your position and FEMA, and just so intimidated by who you were. And that in the course of today, it's just been so beautiful. And that I didn't celebrate what it meant to have, I just put you in a box, I guess. Okay, you're in FEMA, you work for the government, you were in the military, you show up today with a flag, and it's just like, oh, here we go. Judgmental, just,
Oh, you're civil disobedience started to kind of
exactly.
March on Washington.
Oh, shoot me. Yes.
It was triggered.
Yeah. Okay. That's embarrassing and vulnerable.
That's lovely.
So,
I love that you said that.
And then as you are sharing your story, you changed how you were approaching your own life at the point where you were rebellious to the extent that it was interfering with you and interfering with you showing up the way you wanted to in life. And to go from the rebel that got thrown out of the house to the military in one day, wow, that is extraordinary. And here is a very accomplished, wonderful woman making a difference and bringing coaching and compassion and presence into one of the largest organizations in our government, probably the world, and in just across the board, and bringing coaching in there. And you're not choosing the box as described probably 20 years ago. You've taken all the barriers down and said, no, this is how we're going to show up now. This is what we're going to do. And you're really cool. I really like you a lot. Thank you, Valerie. I love spending this time together.
Got that magic touch, like.
Well, it also might have been the red wine.
Okay.
We started with the toast. So right away, okay, I love this woman.
Cool. All right, we can hang. We can hang for at least an hour.
Exactly. Oh, we can drink together. Okay.
So what are you? Well, let me actually, Lytwaive, we didn't even talk about your actual work. So I hope you're okay that we mentioned the organization you work for. So I don't edit any of my things.
That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
I'm sorry. No filter.
No, but it's not, and it's not particular to this conversation. I don't do it for any of them because I noticed in the podcast, we do tend to already put people in boxes anyway. I'm like, heck, we're on Zoom in boxes. So what other boxes do we need? And really the intent of this is to bring people together through building a connection. And we already know, we've stated, connection is not necessarily built through what one does for a living or where one lives or what, group they belong to, but really about these shared experiences, goals, visions, dreams, which you guys both brought very, very vividly to this conversation. So thank you. Thank you guys both. What are you each taking away from having this experience?
Well, I feel like I am sometimes a little shy to open up to people. And from this, I think I want to be, at least I want to be more open. And I do believe that sometimes it is a little bit standoffish from a perspective that, okay, it's the military and it's this and this, you have these special beliefs and the flag, you're this. And I don't wear any of that, right? And one of the things I want to do is work on myself, that inner thing again, to make sure that that's not how I'm showing up, because that's not how I want to show up. I want to show up as being open and available and vulnerable to others, and to have meaningful conversations. So I'm excited about this, and thank you so much, Valerie, for having me.
Cool. And I think you did just that. Whatever it is that you wanted to be seen as, you did it today.
Okay.
And it's going to be going out over the airwaves and the internet. So at least for this hour, this is the Lytwaive that you get. Maybe your colleagues were like, I want to work with her. Who knows? Alison, what about for you? What are you walking away with?
That there's always more. There's always another level. There's always a deeper dive in relationship. And I had felt so close to our cohort, Lytwaive, and that now I feel so much closer to you, and like I really got to know you. And Valerie, you also, that story about being a little girl and crossing the street, and that for me, it was also very poignant that what it looks like and the meaning to us, and everybody else is turning around to you and going, what? It reframes. Yeah. It's still very important to you, but when we say, oh, that voice, everybody's looking at us, and did I just make a fool of myself? That kind of thing. That's how we're interpreting what's going on, not how the world is really seeing us.
Yeah.
They're into their own thing. Nobody's paying attention. It's just
exactly. It's a whole story that we create about things about who we are and who we have to be and what everyone expects and that sort of thing. So yes, I think challenging, like what I take away from this conversation is just how each of us has also found ways to challenge what we ended up with. However we ended up, or we thought the trajectory of our life was going to go based on the past or based on their upbringing or based on our experiences. It's kind of like, oh, I see the two of you clearly, and I feel the same way myself. We have choices and we're exercising them. And that's what I'm really excited about. Like all three of us are actively exercising our right to choose the path, right? Choose a way and be really cool with it. Maybe uncertain, but still cool. Like, okay, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I know what I want to grow up. Like, I want to grow up with I'd love to be 90 years old and go back, oh my gosh, when I was in my 40s, you should know. Like I'd like to have the luxury of that perspective. That would be cool, right? If I don't, I'm okay too. You know, if I feel like I'm, you know how people do like the bunkers and, you know, there's all these, you know, like end of the world moments where people are like, you know, preparing for that. I feel like I'm doing that kind of like what you said, Lytwaive, more with my experiences. Like if the world were to end or if my life were to end in any given moment, this moment in time, I'm complete with my life. Like I'm fulfilled. Like I'm keeping I need to keep like some jars, like maybe like, and get my own pasta. Maybe because I'm from Panama, I probably like to like rice or beans. Maybe like rice and beans. There you go. And that, wouldn't that be awesome? And then I'd have like, you know, fulfillment would be like measured by the beans, right? Like, oh, not the beans, let's say rice, because it's a little bit more compact. So fulfillment by rice and then achievement with beans. And like my whole thing now is, yeah, as long as I keep my fulfillment at par with my achievement, I'm good. You know, I don't need stuff like you were saying, Lytwaive. I also not attached to things like you said, Alison, but I do feel that I do want to live life so fully and so joyfully and so compassionately that I can go at any time. I'm ready. You know, I got my what is it? My TSA pre-check. I got my TSA pre-check to heaven.
Nice.
I love it.
Let's make that up. Anyhow, any final words before we wrap up?
I would just say thank you to both of you. I've enjoyed sharing and actually caring and listening to your stories and getting to know you both better. So thank you.
Yay. Thank you. And Alison, what about for you?
Absolute ditto. This has been just wonderful, Valerie. And your ability to put people together that need to be together is highly honed. Thank you.
A little matchmaker. You know, I thought about ending, since you both already shared your acknowledgement, I thought about ending with something that we've done often at Berkeley with the 3 A's. Remember the 3 A's? Right?
Yes.
So you've each shared something you appreciate. Is there anything that you want to acknowledge or apologize for?
Oh yeah, I got that.
What?
I want to apologize for slipping back into my judgmental self. Rita. And it's just, oh man, I thought I was over it. Clearly not. And the acknowledgement is of who you are, both of you, as these kindred, strong spirits where you model vulnerability for me. And I really appreciate that. And that's, I guess, acknowledgement and appreciation all in one.
All in one. Lytwaive?
Yeah, thank you. So I like to acknowledge you, Valerie, for putting this together and putting us together today. Thank you very much for that. And Alison, I would like to appreciate you for your openness and your authenticity. I can't,
your braces.
Oh, braces.
You just got braces like what, like a week ago, you said? A month ago?
Yeah, it hasn't been that long. It seems like yesterday. Authenticity. Sorry about that. But I do appreciate you just being open about how you really felt when, we kind of started. It's very important, at least to me, that you saw that and you were able to say, oh, it's not really what it really is. It really is better than just this. There's more layers to her than just what I see here. And then I will just apologize for slurring in any of my words, any of the mispronunciations. I am going to blame them all on my braces. But I just like to say thank you guys. I appreciate you all.
The brace is not the wine, everybody. It's the brace. No.
Not the wine. Not the wine. No, just the brace.
Well, first of all, I want to apologize because I didn't know if it was okay to share that you work for the government, Lytwaive or not. We didn't really clarify that. So if that at all put you in an uncomfortable position, sorry, I apologize for that.
It's okay.
Not making that clear. And I want to acknowledge both of you because both of you came into this session, in this recording, feeling quite stressed, right? Stressed and kind of, heavy about the day that you've had. And you brought such uplifting, poignant, special moments to light in what you shared. I just want to acknowledge whatever it is that you did to shake that off and to just allow yourself to be completely present and to be here and share so much heart and meaning, as we like to say, that it made this conversation so light, at least in my experience of it. And I want to acknowledge that you might be going back to whatever you're doing next. So I hope this carries you. Make this the wind beneath your wings. Let's fly. And then the appreciation obviously is just for the really wonderful sharing. I don't take it for granted that the two of you both said how much you trust and honor this invitation, and the fact that you showed up to play, right? You showed up to share and open up to the experience. I don't take for granted that that's something that's not always easy to do. And it's a choice that you made. And I want to honor the choice by saying, thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I hope all of our listeners have been enjoying, those of you who tuned in to this episode of Not Quite Strangers. First of all, if you're not already subscribed, make sure that you go to www.notquitestrangers.com and subscribe so that you don't miss any episode, especially this one, from your inbox. And you can also subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you'll get a notification anytime we have an actual video posted. Now, there's also other podcast platforms you can listen to us on. The other thing, ladies, I wanted to share is we have a behind the scenes for the Not Quite Strangers guests, so you can continue to build this community of Not Quite Strangers. And for any of our listeners who are subscribed, you'll get invited to that particular event, but you have to subscribe. That's the number one thing. So ladies, I'll talk to you more about that, but just keep in mind, every quarter we like to have something, a little gathering, so that you continue to meet others and share. And this is how we build a community from the inside out. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Alison and Lytwaive, again for being here today. You all have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye.
You've been listening to the podcast Not Quite Strangers. Be sure to subscribe or follow on your favorite video or podcast platform. And for more information and content, go to notquitestrangers.com. See you next time.